From the shifting sands of the great Libyan desert, where time itself seems to slow its ceaseless march, a single monolithic form rises, a creature of composite nature, half beast, half man, yet wholly divine. This is the Great Sphinx of Giza, known to the ancient Egyptians simply as Hor-em-Akhet, or Horus of the horizon. Its gaze, fixed immutably toward the east, captures the very essence of eternity, a silent, monumental question posed to the rising sun. We begin our long journey, our slow contemplation, at the feet of this colossal sentinel. To merely glance at the Sphinx is to misunderstand its profound purpose. One must sit in the enclosure, feel the dry heat radiating from the yellow limestone, and absorb the deep, quiet lore woven into the very fabric of its existence. It is not just a statue. It is the soul of ancient knowledge carved into the living rock of the Giza Plateau. Its sheer scale defies the casual imagination, stretching approximately 73 meters, 240 feet, from the tip of its extended paws to the curve of its tail, and standing 20 meters, 66 feet, at the apex of its battered head. The Sphinx is the largest single stone sculpture in the world. It was carved almost entirely from the natural bedrock, a massive monolithic projection of limestone left exposed after the excavation of the quarry that provided the raw material for the Great Pyramid and its neighbors. The surrounding enclosure creates a profound sense of isolation, emphasizing the creature's guardianship over the sacred site. The tone of the structure is one of ancient, immeasurable patience. Unlike the pyramids, which are mathematical achievements of geometry and construction, the Sphinx is a work of subtraction. It is the space around the creature that was removed, revealing the hidden form that had resided within the stone for millennia. This process of unveiling, rather than construction, suggests a profound philosophical concept. The truth was always there, waiting to be revealed. The Sphinx is the truth of the Giza Plateau, unmasked. Our inquiry into the Sphinx is threefold, reflecting the major enigmas that have puzzled geologists, astronomers, and mystics for centuries. We seek to understand its true age, the geological question. Was the Sphinx built by the dynastic Egyptians around 2500 BCE, as conventionally believed? Or does the evidence of heavy water erosion, a signature of ancient, long-vanished rains, point to a vastly older, pre-dynastic origin, perhaps dating back to the epoch of the earliest major rainfall? Its celestial purpose, the astronomical question. Why is its days fixed due east? What celestial body, what constellation did its builders intend for it to forever welcome? We will explore the compelling theory that its alignment is a deliberate marker for the rising of its cosmic double, the constellation Leo, the lion, thousands of years before the accepted date of construction. Its hidden secret, the prophetic question. Does the Sphinx, by its very existence, guard a monumental secret? We will delve into the persistent, powerful rumors of a hall of records, a hidden chamber beneath its monumental paws, containing the crystallized knowledge of a lost, highly advanced civilization. To contemplate the Sphinx is to confront the limitations of the historical record. The dynastic Egyptians themselves seem to treat the monument as something ancient and ancestral, clearing the sand from its massive body repeatedly over thousands of years, referring to it in inscriptions as Horus of the Horizon, but never explicitly claiming its initial construction. This silence in the Egyptian record is, perhaps, the loudest testimony of all, suggesting an origin so remote that it preceded even their own memory. The sheer difficulty of the endeavor, carving such a massive sculpture from a heterogeneous block of poor quality limestone, implies an enormous, almost desperate effort. The rock layers used in the Sphinx's construction are not uniform. They are layers of varying quality that have contributed to the monument's uneven weathering and long history of necessary repairs. The head, carved from a harder stratum, has survived relatively well, while the body, carved from softer, more fragile layers, has suffered continuous degradation. This vulnerability, paradoxically, has preserved the geological signatures that fuel the debate over its true age. The Sphinx sits on the eastern edge of the Giza necropolis, symbolically positioned between the setting world of the dead, the pyramids to the west, and the rising world of rebirth, the sun and the fertile Nile Valley to the east. It is the intermediary, the threshold guardian, positioned at the precise point where the sun rises between the Great Pyramid of Khufu and the Pyramid of Khafra during the equinoxes. It is positioned at the exact moment of transition, holding the balance between night and day, life and death, the known and the unknown. Before we proceed to dissect the geological, astronomical, and prophetic theories, we must internalize the overwhelming silence of the figure. It is this silence that allows the great questions of time to echo in the space around it. The Sphinx is waiting. It waits for the sun to rise, for the sands to shift, and perhaps for the knowledge buried deep within the earth beneath its massive paws to be finally acknowledged. Its gaze is fixed on a moment that may have already passed, or a truth that is yet to be revealed. This slow, deep contemplation sets the stage for the millennia-spanning journey ahead. The sands shift, but the gaze remains. The complexity of the sculpture, the powerful lion's body symbolizing strength and solar power, merged with the human head symbolizing intelligence, wisdom, and consciousness, is a composite that speaks directly to the essence of existence. It is the fusion of instinct and intellect, the anima and the animus, eternally facing the dawn. It is the beginning of the great questioning. We now turn our attention to the physical context, the layers of stone that form the very foundation of the enigma, and the conventional narrative that archaeology has used for generations to explain this most profound of monuments. The stage is set, the shadows lengthen, and the Sphinx remains, watching. The orthodox historical attribution of the Great Sphinx roots its origin firmly within the Old Kingdom of Egypt, specifically placing its creation during the 4th dynasty, around the middle of the 3rd millennium BCE. The conventional narrative, the story accepted by mainstream Egyptology, attributes the carving of the Sphinx to Pharaoh Khafre, the son of Khufu, the builder of the second largest pyramid on the Giza Plateau. This attribution, however, is not based on a clean, primary inscription explicitly naming Khafre as the builder, but rather on a chain of circumstantial evidence and geographical proximity. We must first understand the geological context. The Sphinx was not built from blocks hauled up a ramp. It was carved in situ from a single, massive outcrop of limestone bedrock, a geological feature known as a yardang that projects above the floor of the surrounding quarry. The builders cleared the stone around the natural formation, leaving the Sphinx standing at the bottom of a large protective enclosure, 60 meters long and 20 meters deep. The stone removed from the quarry was then used to construct the core masonry of the 2 associated temples, the Sphinx Temple and the Khafre Valley Temple. The key link in the conventional attribution is this geographical and structural association. The Sphinx enclosure, the Sphinx Temple, and Khafre's Valley Temple are all geometrically and architecturally aligned with Khafre's causeway and the second pyramid. The entire complex is viewed as a single integrated mortuary project, all conceptualized and executed under the command of one pharaoh, Khafre. Furthermore, the human face of the Sphinx is believed by many prominent Egyptologists to resemble the facial features of the statues of Pharaoh Khafre, which were found in his nearby Valley Temple. This sculptural similarity has long served as a powerful, albeit subjective, piece of evidence. Yet it is the geology of the rock itself that becomes the central point of contention in this narrative. The body of the Sphinx is carved from layers of bedrock, or members, of the Eocene-era Mokattam Formation. The quality of this limestone is highly heterogeneous and provides the material evidence for both the conventional dating and the radical alternative dating. The Sphinx's body is composed of 3 primary layers. Member 1, lower layer. This forms the Sphinx's base and the lower flanks, which is composed of the hardest, most brittle limestone, which is rich in nummulitic fossils. Ironically, despite being the hardest, it is also highly susceptible to fracture and disintegration when exposed to wind and moisture, leading to severe erosion along the lower body. Member 2, middle layer. This forms the central body and shoulder area. It is a slightly softer, more layered and porous limestone. This is the layer that exhibits the most dramatic, undulating vertical erosion features, the key focus of the water erosion debate we will address in detail later. Member 3, upper layer. This forms the upper shoulder, neck, and, most importantly, the head. This is the hardest, most resistant stratum of limestone in the entire formation, which is why the head, despite being exposed to millennia of wind and sun, is disproportionately better preserved than the body. The conventional dating places the carving of the Sphinx around 2550 BCE. This date is based on the reigns of Khufu and Khafre. During this time, the climate of the Giza Plateau was already trending toward the arid conditions we see today. The last major period of wet climate, periods characterized by substantial, heavy rainfall, capable of producing deep, vertical weathering of the type seen on the Sphinx enclosure walls, is conventionally placed well before the Fourth Dynasty. This is where the geological enigma begins to undermine the historical narrative. The key physical evidence that challenges the conventional Fourth Dynasty dating are the distinctive patterns of vertical weathering observed not on the body of the Sphinx itself, which is heavily patched with modern and dynastic restorations, but on the untouched, massive limestone walls of the quarry enclosure that immediately surround the body. This deep, vertical fissuring and erosion, running vertically down the walls, is inconsistent with the primary form of weathering that dominated the Egyptian climate from 2500 BCE onward. Sand and wind erosion, horizontal scouring, and salt degradation, flaking caused by water moving through the porous stone. Dr. Robert M. Schoch, a geologist from Boston University, among others, argued that the vertical erosion marks could only have been caused by prolonged exposure to heavy, sustained rainfall, the kind of intense precipitation that characterized the climate of the region thousands of years earlier. If this geological interpretation is correct, it means the Sphinx was already standing, already carved out of the bedrock and exposed to the elements during a period of substantial rainfall. This geological contradiction suggests a timeline that pushes the Sphinx's origin back from 2550 BCE to a date as early as 7000 BCE or even 9000 BCE, placing it squarely in the pre-dynastic era, thousands of years before the rise of the organized civilization that supposedly built it. The conventional narrative cannot easily account for a structure of this monumental scale and sophistication existing millennia before the established timeline of Egyptian statehood. The response from traditional Egyptology to this geological challenge has been vigorous. Critics argue that the vertical weathering could be attributed to a combination of factors, including poor quality of the softer limestone layers, member 2, localized heavy downpours over many centuries, rising groundwater or flooding from the Nile, though the Sphinx is well above flood levels, or even the aggressive salt degradation process typical of porous desert stone. They stand firm on the circumstantial evidence linking the Sphinx to Khafre's unified mortuary complex, arguing that the geological analysis fails to integrate with the overwhelming archaeological and historical context. Yet the questions remain. Why does the erosion on the enclosure walls look so radically different from the erosion on the pyramids, which are undeniably Fourth Dynasty constructions? Why do the vertical fissures seem to be the primary form of weathering, not the horizontal scour of the desert wind? The Sphinx's conventional history, though supported by a compelling circumstantial case, rests on a fragile geological foundation. It is a narrative
that must contend with the stone's own stubborn testimony to a wetter, older epoch. The body of the ages awaits our deeper geological contemplation.
The Great Sphinx is more than a statue. It is a geological and architectural canvas upon which thousands of years of human intervention, natural degradation, and symbolic meaning have been inscribed. Its complex anatomy, carved from the varying strata of limestone bedrock, tells a history of constant maintenance, evolving religious significance, and enduring structural vulnerability. To truly appreciate its enigma, we must examine the specific elements of its colossal form, from the tip of its extended paws to the curve of its largely unseen tail. The monument faces due east, its body positioned along a precise east-west axis, resting upon a rectangular carved bedrock platform that forms the floor of the enclosure. The fundamental design is a powerful composite, the body of a recumbent lion, a universal symbol of solar power, strength, and royalty in ancient Egyptian thought, crowned by a human head, traditionally bearing the royal Nemes headdress, symbolizing intellect and the spirit of the pharaoh. The extended paws are the most iconic and structurally significant features of the Sphinx's two massive, extended paws. These forelegs stretch forward from the body, defining the eastern boundary of the sacred forecourt. The paws are not carved from the original bedrock. They are constructed of carefully laid courses of limestone blocks that were added early in the dynastic period to complete the artistic and structural form. The original soft bedrock portion of the paws would have eroded quickly, necessitating these repairs. The area between the paws is the most intensely scrutinized segment of the entire complex. This small flat space served as the primary ritual area, the place of offering and prayer, which is why Pharaoh Thutmose IV erected the Dream Stela here in the 18th dynasty. The placement of the stela reinforces the Sphinx's role as a deity, a monumentalized form of the sun god, Horus of the horizon. Crucially, the space beneath and immediately forward of these extended paws is the epicenter of the Hall of Records prophecy and the focus of numerous geophysical surveys. It is the area that, according to prophetic claims, contains a sealed entrance to a subterranean chamber. The extended paws, therefore, act as both a physical boundary for the sacred rituals and a symbolic gateway to the monument's deepest secret.
The body and flanks, the erosion testimony. The body of the Sphinx, particularly the flanks in the center section, bears the most visible testimony to its long traumatic history. As noted, this section is carved from the softer Member II limestone stratum, which is highly porous and layered. This material has degraded extensively under exposure to the elements, leading to undulating vertical erosion. The deep, wave-like fissures running vertically down the enclosure walls and the Sphinx's flanks, which Shak interprets as the signature of heavy, sustained rainfall. Massive restoration. The original carving has been obscured by a dizzying array of subsequent repair work. The body is encased in layer upon layer of later limestone blocks, from the New Kingdom, the Roman period, and various modern restoration efforts, necessitating constant patching to prevent the entire body from collapsing inward. The dynastic Egyptians themselves, as early as the New Kingdom, were faced with the task of repairing an already deeply weathered, structurally compromised monument. The tail and posterior walls of the enclosure, less visible to the casual observer, is the Sphinx's tail, which coils around the right flank and runs along the southern wall of the enclosure. The carving here is simpler and also heavily weathered, but its inclusion completes the powerful leonine form, adding to the sense of coiled energy and latent power. The posterior wall of the enclosure, immediately behind the Sphinx, is architecturally significant because it is aligned with the tail end and has been suggested to contain an opening or a shaft leading into the bedrock. Although no major public chambers have been revealed here, the rear of the Sphinx, the area often ignored by solar-focused theories, is symbolically significant as the anchor to the western or underworld aspect of the necropolis. The temples of association. Flanking the Sphinx to the east are the two associated structures built from the same limestone removed from the enclosure. The Sphinx Temple, immediately adjacent and to the east of the Sphinx. This temple is famous for its massive monolithic construction and its precise solar alignments, featuring two inner sanctums aligned with the summer and winter solstice. Its existence confirms that the area was a highly active center of solar worship. Khafre's Valley Temple. Situated slightly further to the southeast, this temple is where the famous diorite statues of Pharaoh Khafre were found. This structural association remains the key pillar of the conventional dating theory, linking the Sphinx geometrically and stylistically to the pharaoh's mortuary complex. The architecture of the Sphinx, therefore, is a history book written in stone, detailing its function as a solar deity, its structural fragility due to the bedrock, its central role in the Giza complex, and its enduring status as the guardian of a mystery that is quite literally rooted in the earth beneath it. The combination of the lion's body and the human head is the ultimate ancient composite, the embodiment of solar might guided by intellect, perpetually facing the dawn.
The deepest layer of the Sphinx's enigma resides not in its carved form, but in the texture of the surrounding enclosure walls. The very stone that bore the final shape of the monument also holds the geological signature of its true age, a testimony that challenges the 4,500-year timeline of conventional history and suggests an origin twice or even 3 times as old. This is the great debate centered on water erosion, a cornerstone of the non-conventional dating theory. The entire theory gained prominence in the early 1990s through the work of Dr. Robert M. Schoch, a geologist and professor at Boston University.
Schock approached the Sphinx not as an archaeologist, but as a specialist in bedrock geology and the weathering of stone monuments. His conclusion, based purely on the geological evidence of the Sphinx and its enclosure, was radical. The primary weathering observed on the monument could not have occurred during the arid climate of the 4th Dynasty, ca. 2500 BCE, but must date back to a much earlier, wetter epoch. The nature of the evidence: vertical undulations. Schock's argument rests on the clear distinction between two types of erosion visible on the Giza Plateau: wind and sand erosion, horizontal scouring. This is the dominant type of erosion seen on structures known to be 4th Dynasty, such as the pyramids and the softer sections of the tombs. This process involves the constant horizontal abrasive action of wind-blown sand, which creates sharp angular erosion features, undercutting, and horizontal grooves. Water erosion, vertical undulations. The walls of the Sphinx's enclosure, however, display a distinct pattern of deep vertical furrows, fissures, and rolling, undulating grooves. This pattern is characteristic of prolonged, heavy exposure to precipitation runoff. When rain falls heavily and persistently, water flows down the stone surface, exploiting the weaker layers, which are stratified horizontally, and creating these signature vertical, rounded channels. Schock argued that the vast majority of this deep vertical erosion must have occurred before the dynastic Egyptians cleared the stone and carved the Sphinx. The severity of the vertical weathering on the enclosure walls, some areas showing erosion of up to 2 meters, would have required thousands of years of exposure to a climate far wetter than any period since 2500 BCE. The climate contradiction. The geological evidence directly clashes with the archaeological timeline. Archaeological date: ca. 2550 BCE, Pharaoh Khafre. Climatic reality at 2550 BCE. The region was already in a state of severe and accelerating desertification, with rainfall reduced to only occasional light showers, insufficient to create the massive vertical weathering observed. Geological requirement: to produce the type and magnitude of vertical erosion seen, the Sphinx would have had to endure an epoch characterized by heavy, sustained torrential rainfall, a climate typical of the African humid period. Based on paleoclimatological data, which we will explore in detail in Part 5, the last time the Giza Plateau experienced a climate wet enough to produce such erosion was the end of the African humid period, dating roughly between 10,000 BCE and 5,000 BCE. Schock's initial, most conservative estimate placed the carving of the Sphinx at least in the 7,000 to 5,000 BCE range, pushing its origin back by 2,500 to 4,500 years. Other interpretations, particularly those tied to the celestial alignment theories, have suggested dates as far back as 10,500 BCE. The archaeological counter-argument. Mainstream Egyptology's counter-arguments, led by figures like Dr. Mark Lehner and Dr. Zahi Hawass, primarily focus on maintaining the coherence of the architectural complex and challenging the geological uniqueness of the weathering. Heterogeneous rock quality. They argue that the softer, more porous limestone of Member 2 is inherently weak and prone to rapid deterioration. The vertical grooves are merely the result of the poor rock quality combined with millennia of heavy dew, groundwater, and localized intense but infrequent heavy showers. salt degradation. The dominant weathering process in Egypt is often salt crystallization, where groundwater evaporates, leaving salt crystals that expand and flake the rock, which can mimic or exacerbate the effects of water runoff. Contextual integrity. The most powerful argument remains the overwhelming evidence of archaeological context. There is zero evidence of a massive, organized civilization capable of sculpting the Sphinx existing at 7000 BCE. The Sphinx must belong to the same complex as the pyramids because they are structurally and geometrically linked. However, the geological challenge persists. The weathering on the enclosure walls visibly differs from the weathering on the pyramids and other 4th dynasty structures. The Sphinx appears to have been weathering for a significantly longer period in a significantly wetter environment. The water erosion debate transforms the Great Sphinx from a dynastic pharaonic statue into a potential relic of a lost civilization, a monumental warning that our understanding of the timeline of human technological and artistic achievement in ancient Egypt may be profoundly wrong. The simple, undulating texture of the stone may hold the key to unlocking a vast, forgotten epoch.
The deepest layer of the Sphinx's enigma resides not in its carved form, but in the texture of the surrounding enclosure walls. The very stone that bore the final shape of the monument also holds the geological signature of its true age, a testimony that challenges the 4,500-year timeline of conventional history and suggests an origin twice or even 3 times as old. This is the great debate centered on water erosion, a cornerstone of the non-conventional dating theory. The entire theory gained prominence in the early 1990s through the work of Dr. Robert M. Schoch, a geologist and professor at Boston University. Schoch approached the Sphinx not as an archaeologist, but as a specialist in bedrock geology and the weathering of stone monuments. His conclusion, based purely on the geological evidence of the Sphinx and its enclosure, was radical. The primary weathering observed on the monument could not have occurred during the arid climate of the 4th dynasty, ca. 2500 BCE, but must date back to a much earlier, wetter epoch. The nature of the evidence: vertical undulations. Schoch's argument rests on the clear distinction between 2 types of erosion visible on the Giza Plateau: wind and sand erosion, horizontal scouring. This is the dominant type of erosion seen on structures known to be 4th dynasty, such as the pyramids and the softer sections of the tombs. This process involves the constant horizontal abrasive action of wind-blown sand, which creates sharp angular erosion features, undercutting, and horizontal grooves. Water erosion, vertical undulations. The walls of the Sphinx's enclosure, however, display a distinct pattern of deep vertical furrows, fissures, and rolling, undulating grooves. This pattern is characteristic of prolonged, heavy exposure to precipitation runoff. When rain falls heavily and persistently, water flows down the stone surface, exploiting the weaker layers, which are stratified horizontally, and creating these signature vertical, rounded channels. Schoch argued that the vast majority of this deep vertical erosion must have occurred before the dynastic Egyptians cleared the stone and carved the Sphinx.
the severity of the vertical weathering on the enclosure walls, some areas showing erosion of up to 2 meters, would have required thousands of years of exposure to a climate far wetter than any period since 2500 BCE. The climate contradiction. The geological evidence directly clashes with the archaeological timeline. Archaeological date, ca. 2550 BCE, Pharaoh Khafre. Climatic reality at 2550 BCE. The region was already in a state of severe and accelerating desertification, with rainfall reduced to only occasional light showers, insufficient to create the massive vertical weathering observed. Geological requirement. To produce the type and magnitude of vertical erosion seen, the Sphinx would have had to endure an epoch characterized by heavy, sustained, torrential rainfall, a climate typical of the African humid period. Based on paleoclimatological data, which we will explore in detail in Part 5, the last time the Giza Plateau experienced a climate wet enough to produce such erosion was the end of the African humid period, dating roughly between 10,000 BCE and 5,000 BCE. Schoch's initial, most conservative estimate placed the carving of the Sphinx at least in the 7,000 to 5,000 BCE range, pushing its origin back by 2,500 to 4,500 years. Other interpretations, particularly those tied to the celestial alignment theories, have suggested dates as far back as 10,500 BCE. The archaeological counter-argument. Mainstream Egyptology's counter-arguments, led by figures like Dr. Mark Lehner and Dr. Zahi Hawass, primarily focus on maintaining the coherence of the architectural complex and challenging the geological uniqueness of the weathering. Heterogeneous rock quality. They argue that the softer, more porous limestone of Member 2 is inherently weak and prone to rapid deterioration. The vertical grooves are merely the result of the poor rock quality combined with millennia of heavy dew, groundwater, and localized intense but infrequent heavy showers. Salt degradation. The dominant weathering process in Egypt is often salt crystallization, where groundwater evaporates, leaving salt crystals that expand and flake the rock, which can mimic or exacerbate the effects of water runoff. Contextual integrity. The most powerful argument remains the overwhelming evidence of archaeological context. There is zero evidence of a massive, organized civilization capable of sculpting the Sphinx existing at 7,000 BCE. The Sphinx must belong to the same complex as the pyramids because they are structurally and geometrically linked. However, the geological challenge persists. The weathering on the enclosure walls visibly differs from the weathering on the pyramids and other 4th Dynasty structures. The Sphinx appears to have been weathering for a significantly longer period in a significantly wetter environment. The water erosion debate transforms the Great Sphinx from a dynastic pharaonic statue into a potential relic of a lost civilization, a monumental warning that our understanding of the timeline of human technological and artistic achievement in ancient Egypt may be profoundly wrong. The simple, undulating texture of the stone may hold the key to unlocking a vast, forgotten epoch. To truly understand the implications of the water erosion debate, we must undertake a slow, deliberate journey into the realm of paleoclimatology, the study of ancient climates. The vertical weathering observed on the Sphinx enclosure walls provides a tangible link to a vanished era known as the African Humid Period, AHP, a time when the Sahara Desert
was a fertile grassland, and heavy rainfall was the norm, not the exception, on the Giza Plateau. The geological signature etched into the Sphinx is a record of a climate radically different from the arid conditions that have characterized Egypt for the last 4,500 years. If the severe vertical erosion was indeed caused by persistent torrential rain runoff, we must identify the last period in history when the Giza Plateau received the necessary volume and duration of precipitation. The African Humid Period. The AHP was a series of periods spanning millennia when the Earth's orbit and tilt, the Milankovitch cycles, combined to intensify the West African monsoon. This process pushed the monsoon rain belt far north, transforming what is now the Sahara Desert into a savanna environment, teeming with wildlife, large lakes, and rivers. Paleoclimatic studies, utilizing data from deep-sea sediment cores, fossil pollen, and ancient lakebeds across North Africa, confirm the AHP was active in several distinct phases, with the most relevant being early AHP, c. 14,500 to 12,500 years ago, a very wet period that predates any known significant human construction in Egypt. The main AHP, c. 9,000 to 5,000 years ago, the peak period of humidity when rainfall was heaviest and most consistent across the Giza region. The climate would have been similar to that of modern tropical savannas, with predictable rainy seasons and intense downpours. The desertification threshold. Crucially, the AHP ended relatively abruptly. As the Milankovitch cycle shifted, the monsoon rains retreated southward, a process known as desertification. By approximately 5000 BCE, 7,000 years ago, the Giza Plateau was already entering the severe arid phase that would characterize the dynastic era. By the time of the Fourth Dynasty, 2550 BCE, the transition to extreme aridity was essentially complete, making it statistically and hydrologically impossible for the rainfall to have occurred with the sustained intensity needed to carve the deep, undulating vertical channels seen on the Sphinx enclosure walls. The scientific conclusion drawn from this paleoclimatic data is compelling. The Sphinx was exposed to its initial, most damaging period of weathering during the main African humid period, well before 5000 BCE. A comparative analysis. To emphasize the argument, one must compare the weathering on the Sphinx enclosure walls with other known structures on the Giza Plateau. The pyramids of Khufu and Khafre are undeniably Fourth Dynasty constructions. If the pyramids had stood exposed during the heavy rains of the AHP, they too would exhibit the deep, vertical, wave-like erosion patterns. Instead, the pyramids display the expected patterns of horizontal scouring caused by wind and sand, and salt flaking, the dominant forms of weathering in an arid environment. The fact that the pyramids exhibit the arid erosion signature, while the Sphinx enclosure walls exhibit the humid erosion signature, suggests the two structures belong to radically different time periods of exposure. The pyramids were built when the climate was already dry. The Sphinx was carved when the climate was wet. The only way to reconcile the Sphinx's geology with the conventional timeline is to invoke a localized, anomalous form of degradation, such as catastrophic groundwater leakage or highly aggressive salt crystallization. However, Schock and other geologists argue that these localized effects cannot account for the large-scale, uniform nature of the vertical erosion that blankets the entire 20-meter-high enclosure walls. The testimony of the rain, etched into the walls, whispers of a time when the Giza Plateau was not the desolate yellow landscape we know today, but a green, life-filled savanna. This implies a civilization, a precursor culture that possessed the logistical capacity, the engineering skill, and the cultural drive to carve a 73-meter-long monument from the bedrock, thousands of years before the rise of the pharaohs. This scientific dating, based on Earth's own meteorological records, is a radical redating that shifts the very foundation of Egyptian history. It moves the Sphinx from being merely a statue of a dynastic pharaoh to being a colossal relic of the very first civilizations, a silent witness to a lost Egyptian prehistory. The Sphinx is not 4,500 years old. The testimony of the rain suggests it may be closer to 7,000, 8,000, or even 12,000 years old, awaiting a date that aligns with its celestial purpose.
Beyond the contentious debate over its terrestrial age, the Great Sphinx presents a less controversial, yet equally profound astronomical truth. It is an unparalleled monument to solar alignment. Its east-west axis is not random. It is a meticulously calculated alignment that transforms the entire Giza complex into a vast celestial clock and stage for the drama of the rising sun. The conventional dynastic attribution finds its strongest symbolic support in this solar function. The Sphinx is oriented almost perfectly due east. This is not just a general direction. It is the precise point on the horizon where the sun rises on the two most significant days of the ancient solar calendar, the vernal, spring, and autumnal, fall equinoxes. The equinox phenomenon. The equinoxes are the two annual moments when the Earth's axis is neither tilted toward nor away from the sun, resulting in a day and night of nearly equal length across the globe. For agricultural and cosmological societies like the dynastic Egyptians, the equinox was a critical moment of balance, a transition point between the cycles of light and darkness. If one stands directly between the Sphinx's extended paws on the morning of the equinox, the sun rises precisely over the eastern horizon, aligned along the Sphinx's body, its light bathing the entire monument. Furthermore, the Sphinx's gaze and the line of the temples are aligned to frame the sun rising between the Great Pyramid of Khufu and the Pyramid of Khafre. The entire Giza Plateau, from the perspective of the Sphinx, becomes a monumental hieroglyph. The sun, representing the god Re or Horus, rises on the horizon, represented by the two pyramids, and shines directly upon the guardian deity Hor-em-Akhet, Horus of the horizon. This arrangement confirms the Sphinx's role as a gigantic three-dimensional Akh symbol, the spirit or glorious immortal being of the deceased pharaoh, reborn with the rising sun. The Sphinx Temple and Valley Temple. This solar alignment is physically reinforced by the two associated structures built immediately in front of the Sphinx's paws, the Sphinx Temple and the Khafre Valley Temple. The Sphinx Temple. This structure is a masterpiece of solar architecture.
Its two inner sanctums, or courtyards, are built with their axes oriented to capture the light of the summer and winter solstices, the two extreme points of the sun's annual journey. The main axis, however, remains fixed on the equinox sunrise. This architecture demonstrates an advanced understanding of celestial mechanics and an unwavering focus on the sun's passage through the sky. The Khafre Valley Temple, situated slightly southeast of the Sphinx Temple, the Valley Temple is where the procession bearing the pharaoh's body would have arrived from the Nile. Its primary axis, its doors, and its inner chambers are all oriented to capture the rising sun. The sheer magnitude of the monolithic red granite pillars within the temple creates an atmosphere where the pharaoh's spirit was intended to merge with the solar deity Re. The solar alignment is the core function of the Giza complex. It is the ritual landscape of rebirth. The pyramids are the western tomb where the pharaoh's soul sets. The Sphinx is the eastern threshold where the soul rises. The entire structure is a gigantic machine for ensuring the pharaonic resurrection and the continuity of the cosmic order, Ma'at. The astronomical paradox. While the solar alignment strongly supports the idea that the Sphinx was a profound instrument of dynastic Egyptian solar worship, it does not necessarily confirm the 4th dynasty date. If the Sphinx was carved by an earlier, pre-dynastic civilization, as suggested by the water erosion, that culture would have possessed the same or perhaps even more advanced knowledge of the solar cycle. The rising and setting points of the sun on the equinoxes and solstices are fixed within human historical time. They do not change over thousands of years due to the slow wobble of the Earth's axis, precession. Therefore, the Sphinx's solar orientation is timeless. It perfectly serves the solar worship of 2550 BCE, but it would have served the solar worship of 7000 BCE just as well. The Sphinx is a solar marker, but it is not a chronological marker. To find a chronological marker, a celestial feature that does change its position over thousands of years, we must look beyond the sun and turn our gaze deeper into the night sky, toward the constellations that slowly rise and set over the vast backdrop of the precessional cycle. This shift in focus moves our contemplation from the daily rebirth of the sun to the deep, slow rhythm of the galaxy and the ultimate, most profound alignment, the constellation Leo.
We now move from the certainty of the solar alignment, the fixed daily rhythm of the sun, to the most profound and chronologically suggestive enigma of the Great Sphinx, its supposed alignment with its celestial counterpart, the constellation Leo, the lion. This theory, known as the zodiacal alignment hypothesis, suggests the Sphinx was conceived and carved to mark a specific, powerful moment in the 26,000-year cycle of the Earth's precession, pushing its possible age back to the mythological epoch of 10,500 BCE. The foundation of this theory lies in the immutable laws of celestial mechanics, specifically the phenomenon of precession of the equinoxes. Due to the slow gyroscopic wobble of the Earth's axis, the point on the eastern horizon where the sun rises on the vernal equinox slowly shifts over a cycle of approximately 25,920 years. This shift means that the constellation that rises just before the sun on the equinox, the heliacal rising, changes approximately every 2,160 years, defining the astrological ages. The Sphinx as a celestial epoch marker. The Great Sphinx is a monumental, human-headed lion facing due east. In 2550 BCE, conventional date, the constellation rising heliacally on the vernal equinox was Taurus, the bull, followed by Aries, the ram. There is no celestial logic in building a monumental lion during the age of the bull or ram. The celestial paradox is, if the builders intended the Sphinx to be a permanent terrestrial marker of its own celestial form, then the logical time for its construction would have been when the constellation Leo, the lion, was rising heliacally on the vernal equinox. Using precise astronomical calculation, the epoch when the sun, on the morning of the vernal equinox, rose directly in the constellation Leo occurred approximately 10,500 BCE. The symmetry is too compelling to be easily dismissed. The colossal terrestrial lion, the Sphinx, is positioned to gaze directly at its celestial twin, the celestial lion, Leo, rising on the most sacred day of the solar calendar. This synchronization would have created a potent, time-specific symbol, locking the Sphinx to a moment deep in the Paleolithic era, thousands of years before the accepted archaeological timeline of advanced civilization. The evidence of the sky. This hypothesis gained significant traction through the work of authors like Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval, who popularized the connection. They argue that the entire Giza Plateau, including the pyramids and the Sphinx, was conceived as a single massive map of the sky at a specific epoch, 10,500 BCE. In this model, the Sphinx is the marker for the constellation Leo. The three pyramids are the markers for the three stars of Orion's belt. The pyramid's positions on the ground precisely mirror the relative positions and brightness of the three stars of Orion's belt as they would have appeared on the meridian in 10,500 BCE. The Sphinx, positioned on the eastern horizon, anchors this celestial map by representing the corresponding constellation rising heliacally at the same precessional epoch. This theory suggests that the builders of the Giza complex were not merely primitive solar worshippers, but sophisticated astronomers and timekeepers who possessed a profound technical understanding of the 25,920-year precessional cycle, knowledge that is conventionally attributed to Greek astronomers like Hipparchus much later in history. The challenge of context. The obvious challenge to the 10,500 BCE date is the lack of any known supporting archaeological evidence for a civilization capable of such monumental and technical engineering at that time. Where are the massive tools, the settlements, the written records, and the necessary logistical infrastructure to carve a 240-foot Sphinx? Proponents of the Leo alignment often counter that the carving of the Sphinx, particularly the initial carving from the bedrock, was done by an advanced, lost civilization, a concept that naturally leads to the prophetic claims of Atlantis. They point to the water erosion, Part 4, as the terrestrial evidence confirming the extreme age suggested by the celestial evidence. The geology and the astronomy, independent lines of inquiry, converge on the same pre-dynastic epoch. If the Sphinx does indeed mark the heliacal rising of Leo at 10,500 BCE, it transforms the monument from a pharaonic statue into a cosmic calendar, a massive silent marker anchored to the earth, eternally watching a celestial event that took place in a distant, forgotten epoch, preserving a memory that spans not millennia, but ages. This deep, slow rhythm of the stars leads us naturally to a more technical contemplation of the precession cycle itself.
To appreciate the profound claims made by the astronomical alignment theories, we must dedicate a slow, deliberate contemplation to the very mechanism that governs galactic timekeeping, the precession of the equinoxes. This phenomenon dictates the slow 25,920-year rhythm of the Sphinx's celestial clock, positioning the monument as a potential masterwork of ancient, long-term chronological planning. The Earth's axis, like a gigantic, slow-motion gyroscope, does not point immutably at the North Star, Polaris. Instead, the combined gravitational pull of the Sun and Moon on the Earth's equatorial bulge causes the axis to perform a slow, massive wobble, tracing a circle in the sky. One full rotation of this wobble takes approximately 25,920 years, a period known as the Great Year or the Platonic Year. The mechanism of celestial shift. This slow wobble causes two major effects critical to understanding the Sphinx. Polaris shift. Over the Great Year, the position of the North Celestial Pole changes. The dynastic Egyptians used a different pole star, Thuban, and in the future, the pole star will be Vega. Zodiacal shift, the ages. Crucially, the wobble causes the celestial sphere to appear to shift relative to the Earth's fixed markers, like the equinox point. The constellation that rises on the eastern horizon just before the Sun on the vernal equinox, the age, changes roughly every 2,160 years, 25,920 divided by 12 zodiac signs. The astronomical dating of the Sphinx to 10,500 BCE is based entirely on the calculation that this was the epoch when the precessional cycle placed the Sun in the constellation Leo at the moment of the vernal equinox. The Sphinx as a precessional chronometer. If the Sphinx was built in 10,500 BCE, it implies its builders possessed an advanced, long-term cosmological awareness. They weren't just charting the daily path of the Sun, they were charting the slow, epochal path of the stars over thousands of years. They conceived of the Sphinx as a permanent terrestrial record of a specific moment in the Great Year, the dawn of the Age of Leo. This concept integrates the entire Giza complex into a grand astronomical plan. Epoch, 10,500 BCE. Eastern horizon marker, the Sphinx, the terrestrial lion, is positioned to greet the heliacal rising of Leo, the celestial lion. Meridian marker. The three pyramids are positioned to map the three stars of Orion's belt when that constellation was at its highest point, the meridian, at the same time and date, the vernal equinox. The placement of the monuments is not random architecture, it is galactic timekeeping carved into the bedrock. This hypothesis elevates the purpose of the Giza Plateau beyond a pharaonic necropolis to a profound library of the sky, a message left for future generations to decipher using the tools of astronomy and geometry. The connection to a lost golden age. The idea that the Sphinx records the age of Leo aligns perfectly with the geological findings of the water erosion, Part 4, which also suggests an extreme pre-dynastic age. The convergence of these two independent lines of evidence, one based on the Earth's climate history, the other on the Earth's celestial mechanics, forms the core of the non-conventional argument for a lost golden age preceding the dynastic Egyptians. This lost civilization, which could have been the one theorized by the prophet Edgar Cayce, would have possessed the technical knowledge of massive stone carving and engineering, the sophisticated astronomical knowledge required to map the precessional cycle, the philosophical motivation to preserve this knowledge in a monumental, durable, and easily readable form, the Sphinx's symbolic shape. The Sphinx therefore acts as a monumental cosmic compass, orienting itself not only to the daily rise of the sun, but to the massive, slow cycle of the galaxy itself. Its enduring stillness is not mere inertia. It is a profound act of galactic record-keeping, waiting patiently for the return of the stars to the position it was built to memorialize. The contemplation of this slow, endless rhythm reminds us that the history of Giza is not just measured in the reigns of pharaohs, but in the eons of the cosmos.
As we contemplate the cosmic ambition of the Sphinx's alignment, a noticeable physical discrepancy within the monument itself demands our slow, careful attention. The disproportionate size and style of the head relative to the colossal body. This physical anomaly has led to theories suggesting that the Sphinx's current human head is not its original form, but a later recarving by the dynastic Egyptians, a powerful clue supporting the monument's pre-dynastic age. Visually, the Sphinx's head appears too small for its body. The leonine body is massive, powerful, and elongated, reflecting the anatomical proportions of a recumbent lion. The human head, however, is petite and lacks the robust scale that would be anatomically harmonious with the rest of the creature. This disproportionality is not a mistake, but a feature that suggests a significant modification. The discrepancy of scale and style. The lion body. The body is carved from the softer, highly eroded members 1 and 2 limestone strata. It is massive in scale, reflecting the original dimensions of the yardang it was carved from. The human head. The head is carved from the much harder, more durable member 3 stratum. Crucially, the style of the head, the facial features, the Nemes headdress, and the uraeus cobra on the brow, most of which is now lost, is distinctly dynastic Egyptian and resembles the style of the 4th dynasty, particularly the statues of Khafre. The theory of recarving suggests that the Sphinxes originally possessed a much larger and structurally different head, possibly that of a full lion, which would have been perfectly proportionate to the body. Over the millennia, this original head would have suffered severe erosion from the heavy rainfall of the African humid period, if the erosion dating is correct, Part 4. When the 4th dynasty pharaohs arrived at Giza, either Khufu or Khafre, they discovered this massive, heavily weathered, pre-existing monument. Recognizing its profound symbolic power, the lion facing the equinox, they decided to appropriate and renovate it. The act of appropriation and reduction. The process of recarving the head would have been a practical and political necessity. Practical, the original head, having weathered for thousands of years, may have been too damaged or structurally unsound to be repaired. Political, symbolic. The fourth dynasty pharaoh, seeking to integrate the pre-existing, potent symbol into his own mortuary complex, ordered the damaged, original head to be cut down and recarved into his own image, the human face, and crowned with the royal Nemes headdress. This act was a powerful statement of appropriation, symbolically claiming the ancient solar deity for the new dynasty. The head is disproportionately small because the sculptor had to carve the new, smaller human face out of the core of the much larger, highly weathered original head. The original massive lion head, being wider and perhaps taller, would have been cut down to the dimensions dictated by the hardest, most stable core rock left. This act dramatically reduced the scale of the head relative to the body, creating the visual anomaly we observe today. The alternative, the baboon theory. Some alternative theorists propose that the original head was not a full lion, but perhaps a baboon, an animal strongly associated with the ancient Egyptian moon god Thoth, the deity of wisdom, measurement, and writing. A baboon in a seated posture would have been symbolically appropriate for a monument guarding a Hall of Records, Part 12. But the evidence for a lion is stronger, given the body's form and the astronomical alignment to the constellation Leo. The missing head theory is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence tying the geological and astronomical theories back to the physical monument. It posits that the dynastic Egyptians did not build the Sphinx, but rather restored and rebranded an already ancient relic. The weathering of the body is the relic of the pre-dynastic age. The face is the signature of the dynastic claim. The Sphinx's head, battered and enigmatic, thus represents the very moment of transition between a lost civilization and the rise of the pharaohs, a literal carving over where the ancient past was reshaped and claimed by the political present, but where the body's deep, weathered memory still speaks the truth of its long, enduring age.
The Sphinx's long history is not just one of creation and recarving, but one of repeated oblivion and miraculous re-emergence. For thousands of years, the great monument was relentlessly besieged by the Libyan desert, its massive body slowly, inexorably swallowed by the wind-driven sands. This cyclical burial and rediscovery are central to the monument's lore and is powerfully documented by the Dream Stela, a granite plaque nestled directly between the Sphinx's extended paws. The Dream Stela, erected by Pharaoh Thutmose IV of the 18th dynasty, circa 1400 BCE, is the most crucial dynastic Egyptian inscription directly referencing the Sphinx. It is a testament to the fact that even over a millennium after its supposed construction by Khafre, the Sphinx was regarded by the Egyptians as an ancient, powerful, and mysterious deity, often requiring rescue from the desert itself. The narrative of the stela. The inscription on the stela tells a fascinating semi-mythological story. Before Thutmose was pharaoh, while he was merely a young prince, he was out hunting near the Giza plateau. Becoming tired, he lay down to rest in the shadow of the Sphinx, whose massive head was the only part visible above the rising sands. In his sleep, the Sphinx,
speaking to him as the god Hore-Meket, appeared in a dream. The great god promised Thutmose the throne of Egypt if he would undertake the colossal task of excavating the Sphinx from the encroaching sand and restoring the monument. The god lamented his current state, saying, "The sand of the desert, upon which I am situated, is choking me." Thutmose, upon ascending to the throne, fulfilled his promise, undertaking one of the most ambitious and large-scale clearance projects in Egyptian history. The placement of the stela between the paws was a commemorative gesture, a monumental thank you to the god who had guaranteed his kingship. The importance of the record. The dream stela provides several critical insights into the Sphinx's history and enduring mystique. Evidence of antiquity. The language used by Thutmose IV suggests he saw the Sphinx as a god and a relic from a distant past, not a recent statue of his distant ancestor. His act was one of restoration and reverence, not original construction. This reinforces the idea that the Sphinx had no clear origin date, even in the minds of the dynastic Egyptians. The cycle of burial. The stela confirms that for long periods, the Sphinx was completely submerged by sand. This cyclical burial has paradoxically contributed to its preservation. The sand, a powerful abrasive agent when in motion, but it becomes an effective protective layer when stationary. Many of the lower, more heavily weathered sections of the body were protected from further degradation during the millennia they spent buried. The continuity of worship. The inscription solidifies the Sphinx's role as the sun god Hore-Meket. It was not a mere memorial, but an active, speaking oracle, a living god whose condition directly affected the stability of the Egyptian kingdom. This explains the repeated clearance efforts by subsequent pharaohs. Later reemergences. The cleaning of Thutmose IV was not the last. The cycle of burial continued relentlessly. Roman period. The monument was cleared and restored by Roman emperors who were fascinated by the ancient relic and integrated it into their own cult of the sun. The 19th century. When European travelers arrived in Egypt during the 19th century, the Sphinx was again largely buried up to its neck. Colossal excavation efforts were required in the 1920s to fully expose the body and the enclosure walls once more, revealing the full extent of the erosion and the complex layers of restoration masonry that had been applied over thousands of years. The dream stela is more than a historical footnote. It is a philosophical meditation on the power of the desert. It reminds us that the Sphinx has always been locked in a quiet, massive struggle with the elements, constantly flirting with oblivion. The fact that Thutmose IV found the motivation to clear a structure that was already over 1,000 years old by the conventional date demonstrates the profound, enduring power of its sacred gaze, which no amount of shifting sand could entirely conceal. It is a monument that history itself repeatedly refused to forget.
For centuries, the colossal, monolithic form of the Great Sphinx has generated intense, persistent rumors of hidden, subterranean chambers sealed beneath its massive paws, flanks, and enclosure floor. These are not merely modern theories. The whispers of hidden vaults containing secret knowledge predate modern archaeology, adding a powerful layer of mystique to the monument's physical presence. This focus on the hidden space complements the contemplation of the visible form. The location of the primary rumored chamber is unequivocally the space immediately beneath the extended paws and the forecourt, an area considered the most sacred, ritualistic ground in the entire enclosure. The logic behind this belief is deeply rooted in the Sphinx's symbolic role. The lion is a guardian,
And if the guardian is eternal, what treasure of eternal value would it be tasked to protect? Historical and folkloric references. The idea of the Sphinx guarding a vault predates the modern era. Early Egyptian references. While explicit mention of a hall of records is modern, some ancient Egyptian texts refer to sacred knowledge being hidden or sealed away, often associated with Thoth, the god of wisdom, and the region of the Memphite necropolis. The Sphinx's composite form, strength, lion, and intelligence, human, makes it the perfect metaphorical guardian for such a sacred repository. Arab folk tales. Local Arab lore throughout the centuries maintained that the Sphinx was a sentinel guarding a vast treasury, a belief that spurred numerous unauthorized and often destructive excavations in the Middle Ages. The very name Abul Hul, or Father of Terror, given to the Sphinx by locals, reflected their awe and fear of the secret it purportedly concealed. The logical argument for a chamber. Beyond folklore, the possibility of a chamber is supported by architectural and structural logic. Engineering precedent. Ancient Egyptian builders routinely incorporated subterranean chambers into their monumental structures. The structure of the Sphinx, carved from the bedrock, offers a unique opportunity to excavate and seal a highly protected vault deep within the original formation. Symbolic necessity. Given the Sphinx's celestial orientation toward Leo, Part 7, and the Sun, Part 6, and its presumed pre-dynastic age, Part 4, its builders would have had a profound motivation to preserve their advanced knowledge of astronomy, engineering, and cosmology from a coming cataclysm, such as the end of the humid period or a geological event. Sealing this knowledge beneath the most durable, massive, and symbolically potent monument on Earth would have been the ultimate act of preservation. The focus on the flanks and tail. Rumors are not confined to the paws. The area surrounding the Sphinx, particularly beneath the flanks and in the enclosure walls, has also been subject to speculation regarding secondary tunnels and smaller access shafts. The right flank anomaly. Geophysical surveys have sometimes indicated anomalies in the stone beneath the right flank of the Sphinx, suggesting possible voids or different rock densities that may not be geological in origin. The temple passages. The associated Sphinx Temple and Valley Temple, Part 3, are themselves riddled with smaller passages and chambers that served various ritual functions. It is conceivable that a larger subterranean network links these temples to the main monument itself. The persistent nature of these rumors, rooted in ancient lore and perpetuated by prophetic claims, demands a systematic, scientific investigation. The Sphinx is a guardian, and the greatest treasure it could guard is not gold, but knowledge, a complete record of its true builders and the history of the epoch it was built to memorialize. This leads us directly to the most famous and most controversial prophecy tied to the hidden chambers.
The persistent rumors of hidden chambers found their most powerful and specific voice in the prophetic claims of Edgar Cayce, 1877-1945, the American sleeping prophet. Cayce's pronouncements, given in a trance state, transformed the folkloric tales of buried treasure into a precise, monumental prediction. The Sphinx guards the Hall of Records, a vast library containing the history of a lost advanced civilization, the continent of Atlantis. Casey's readings, given over several decades in the mid-20th century, provided startling detail about the Sphinx's origin and purpose, information that directly aligns with the non-conventional dating theories of today. Prophecy of the Atlantean records. Casey claimed that the Sphinx was constructed by Atlantean refugees who had fled the final catastrophic sinking of their continent around 10,500 BCE. Crucially, the Atlanteans, possessing highly advanced technological and spiritual knowledge, foresaw their cataclysm and sought to preserve their history for a future civilization. The prophecies claimed that the Hall of Records was a secret chamber, located precisely beneath the Sphinx's right, southern, extended paw, or in the adjacent forecourt. This chamber, they said, contains Atlantean history, the complete, sealed record of the continent's rise, fall, and knowledge, possibly inscribed on non-perishable materials like treated paper, specialized stone, or crystallized metal plates. Engineering and science. Detailed accounts of Atlantean technology, including their use of crystal power and advanced physics. Spiritual wisdom, the deepest spiritual and cosmological understanding of the Atlantean Golden Age. According to Casey, the Hall of Records would be discovered and opened when the world reached a certain level of spiritual and technological maturity, marking a new age for humanity. He pinpointed the time frame for its rediscovery to be around the late 20th and early 21st centuries. The convergence of prophecy and science. The timing of Casey's prophecy is remarkable because it was made decades before the work of Dr. Robert Schoch, Part 4, and the astronomical alignment theories, Part 7. Yet his prediction of the Sphinx's origin date of 10,500 BCE is the same epoch later determined by astronomers to be the age of Leo, the celestial lion. Prophecy. Sphinx built by Atlanteans at 10,500 BCE to preserve records. Astronomy. Sphinx built to align with the heliacal rising of Leo at 10,500 BCE. This convergence, the prophetic claim aligning with the independent astronomical calculation, has lent significant credence to the concept of a pre-dynastic Sphinx and a lost wisdom contained beneath it. It transformed the Hall of Records from a fringe idea into a serious, if controversial, motivation for scientific investigation. The archaeological response. Mainstream Egyptology, while acknowledging the cultural impact of Casey's prophecy, firmly rejects the Atlantean connection and the existence of a Hall of Records. They argue that the prophecies are based on unsubstantiated folklore and that the focus on such a chamber detracts from legitimate, evidence-based archaeological study. Nevertheless, the specificity of Casey's claims, the precise location beneath the right paw, has directly informed and fueled subsequent geophysical surveys. The possibility of a sealed chamber, regardless of its contents, Atlantean or pre-dynastic Egyptian, has become a central focus for researchers utilizing non-destructive technologies. The prophecy acted as a literal map, pushing scientists to investigate the anomalies in the bedrock that might confirm the presence of a hidden, sealed space. The Sphinx, therefore, stands not only as an astronomical marker and a geological enigma, but as a prophetic magnet, a colossal statue whose fate and purpose were foretold by a 20th century mystic, drawing the attention of both the deeply faithful and the rigorously scientific to the mystery contained deep within the Giza Plateau's ancient stone.
The powerful convergence of the geological, astronomical, and prophetic evidence demanding a pre-dynastic date and hidden chambers required a definitive scientific response. Beginning in the late 20th century, a series of research teams utilized non-destructive geophysical technologies to peer beneath the Sphinx, specifically targeting the areas described by the prophetic and structural theories. This effort to map the subsurface rock and locate anomalies became known as the quest for voids. The primary technologies employed were seismic refraction and reflection. This technique involves generating controlled seismic waves using a small hammer blow or a small explosive charge near the monument. The waves travel through the bedrock, and when they encounter a boundary, such as the bottom of the enclosure, a different rock density, or a void, an empty space, they reflect or refract back to the surface. Measuring the time it takes for the waves to return allows scientists to create a subterranean map of the rock structure. Ground-penetrating radar, GPR, works by emitting high-frequency radio waves into the ground. These waves are reflected back when they encounter boundaries between materials with different electrical properties, such as rock/air, rock/metal, rock/soil. GPR is highly effective for locating shallow features and man-made structures. The evidence for subsurface anomalies. Several key surveys, often conducted by research teams, including Dr. Thomas Dobecki and Dr. Robert Schoch in the early 1990s, yielded intriguing yet inconclusive evidence. The northern flank void. Seismic surveys along the northern flank of the Sphinx, the left side, consistently indicated a clear velocity anomaly in the bedrock at depths ranging from 5 to 7 meters. The seismic waves traveled through this zone at a velocity significantly slower than through the surrounding solid limestone, suggesting the presence of a softer material, fractured rock, or a small sealed cavity. The forecourt or right paw anomaly. Surveys conducted in the sacred forecourt, particularly near the location described by the Casey prophecy, beneath the right paw or flank, also indicated a notable anomaly. This finding suggested a possible subsurface cavity or a significant change in rock composition that was not a natural geological feature. Interpreting the findings. The detection of an anomaly does not automatically confirm the existence of a hall of records. Voids can be caused by natural geological features, such as pockets of soft sand, ancient fissures, or even water-filled sinkholes. The pro-chamber interpretation. Proponents argue that the anomalies, particularly the discrete rectangular nature suggested by the seismic returns, are too regular and well-defined to be natural.
They suggest the voids represent small, sealed chambers, or perhaps the entrance shaft to a larger, deeper complex. The fact that the anomalies are located in areas of high structural and prophetic significance further strengthens this view. The geological interpretation. Skeptics and mainstream archaeologists argue that the seismic and GPR technologies are often ambiguous. The voids could simply be pockets of soft, highly fractured limestone, member 2, that have been extensively degraded by groundwater and salt crystallization. They contend that the data is not clear enough to justify destructive drilling or excavation. The controversy of access. The most significant impact of these surveys was the resulting controversy over access and excavation. Following the publication of the seismic findings, the Egyptian Antiquities Authority, now the Supreme Council of Antiquities, placed severe restrictions on any further independent geophysical study or physical investigation in the Sphinx enclosure. The results of the seismic and radar surveys remain a source of intense debate. While the technologies successfully confirmed the existence of subsurface anomalies in the Sphinx's bedrock, suggesting non-uniformity and possible cavities, they did not and could not definitively prove the presence of the mythical Hall of Records. The quests for voids did, however, transform the debate from philosophical speculation into a concrete, testable hypothesis about the physical structure of the Great Sphinx.
The Great Sphinx's long history is marked not only by grand pronouncements and geophysical surveys, but also by the small, physical secrets revealed during the countless efforts to excavate and restore its massive, crumbling body. Among the most intriguing of these discoveries is the existence of several known tunnels and shafts already present within the structure, relics of ancient builders, excavators, and perhaps the original designers. These passages, while not the fabled Hall of Records, add to the monument's enduring enigma. The Sphinx's structural fragility, due to its soft limestone composition, meant it has been a continuous construction site since the 18th dynasty. Each restoration campaign has provided modern archaeologists with a glimpse into its internal secrets, most notably the passages located in its upper sections. The shaft behind the head, the Western Passage. The most famous of these known passages is a small shaft or hole located on the back of the Sphinx's neck, head, a spot now commonly covered by a metal grill for protection. Discovery. This shaft has been known since the earliest dynastic restoration efforts and was noted by European explorers in the 19th century. Structure and depth. The passage descends a short distance, approximately 5 to 6 meters into the body of the Sphinx. Purpose. Its original purpose remains unknown, leading to speculation. It may have been a drainage hole, a secure location for an offering or statue, or perhaps an unfinished attempt by the original builders to tunnel into the body. Given its location directly behind the head, some suggest it may have been an access point used by the priests to speak as the voice of the god Hor-em-Akhet during ceremonies. While certainly not the main entrance to a grand hall, this small, unassuming passage confirms the structural non-uniformity of the Sphinx and the fact that its creators, or early restorers, actively manipulated the space within the colossal figure.
the shaft in the body, the cavity of pairing. Another famous internal breach is the large hole drilled into the Sphinx's body by the British engineer Howard Vyse and his assistant Giovanni Battista Caviglia in the 1830s. Motivation: driven by the intense European fascination and the belief in hidden chambers, Vyse and Caviglia used drilling and explosives to penetrate the body of the Sphinx, seeking the legendary treasure. However, they found only fractured soft rock and a few scraps of later dynastic pottery. Yet their destructive activities created a large, visible cavity within the upper back of the Sphinx's body, which contributed significantly to the monument's structural instability over the following century. The cavity, known as the cavity of pairing, named after Vyse's foreman, had to be filled in with concrete and repair blocks during later restorations. This episode serves as a powerful historical reminder of the danger posed by uncontrolled searches for the hidden secrets, and the reason for the stringent controls placed on the site today. The enigmas of restoration. The long history of restoration itself is an enigma. Each pharaoh, and later each restoration team, used different materials, methods, and levels of care. Dynastic patching. The earliest repairs used smaller, less durable limestone blocks, often haphazardly placed. These early patches are the primary evidence that the dynastic Egyptians were constantly fighting the degradation of an already ancient monument. Modern concrete. The most controversial repairs occurred in the early 20th century and again in the 1980s, when large amounts of concrete were used to fill holes and reinforce the flanks. Concrete, while strong, traps moisture and salts, accelerating the degradation of the surrounding porous limestone, leading to a disastrous cycle of repair and decay. The Western Passage and the other internal features are fragments of a larger lost architectural plan. They demonstrate that the Sphinx is not a solid mass, but a complex structure with internal spaces, intentional voids, and a long, violent history of internal exploration. While they may not lead to the Hall of Records, they are physical markers of the Sphinx's multi-layered reality, a monument whose internal anatomy is as complex and mysterious as its external history. We elevate our contemplation now from the specific features of the Sphinx to its role as the conceptual centerpiece of the entire Giza necropolis. The conventional view treats the Sphinx as a mere appendage to Khafre's pyramid complex. The alternative view, however, posits the Sphinx as the architect, the primary, older element that dictated the orientation and layout of all subsequent constructions, establishing the Giza Plateau as a sacred, unified master plan. The logic of the Sphinx as the architect rests on the idea of reverse engineering the site's layout. If the Sphinx was indeed carved in the pre-dynastic epoch of 10,500 BCE, the age of Leo, then the dynastic pharaohs would have been compelled to build their massive tombs and temples in reverence to this pre-existing, immensely powerful solar deity. The centerpiece of orientation. The Sphinx's primary importance is its unchangeable east-west axis aligned with the equinox sunrise. Part 6. This alignment is the single most significant fixed point on the Giza Plateau, Khafre's complex. The entire mortuary complex of Pharaoh Khafre, the causeway, the valley temple, and the second pyramid is geometrically laid out to be aligned with the Sphinx's axis. This is the conventional evidence for Khafre's ownership. However, if the Sphinx was already standing, Khafre would have been forced to align his complex to the pre-existing sacred orientation of the solar guardian. Building in alignment with a powerful pre-existing structure is a common feature of ancient architecture, a deliberate act of appropriation and legitimation. Khufu's complex. Even the Great Pyramid of Khufu, slightly earlier than Khafre, is aligned to the cardinal directions, a precision shared by the Sphinx. The pyramid's placement relative to the Sphinx creates the monumental solar stage where the sun rises between them, Part 6. The alignment suggests that the pharaohs did not simply choose a random spot. They built their monuments in a precise, geometric relationship to the fixed gaze of Horem-Akhet. The Giza Plateau, from this perspective, is not a collection of individual tombs, but a single, massive cosmological machine, all operating under the geometric and celestial direction of the Sphinx. The Sphinx is the pointer, the anchor, the oldest point of reference for the entire construction plan. The symbolic landscape. The Sphinx acts as the crucial boundary between two worlds. The world of rebirth, east. The Sphinx faces the Nile and the rising sun, the realm of light, life, and the daily solar cycle. The associated valley temple served as the place where the pharaoh's body was prepared to merge with the solar deity. The world of the dead, west. The pyramids sit on the western side, acting as the monumental tombs where the pharaoh's soul descends into the underworld before being reborn in the east. The Sphinx is positioned precisely on the liminal threshold, the edge of the high plateau overlooking the fertile valley. It is the gatekeeper of the necropolis, the single point that connects the solar theology of the living to the burial theology of the dead. It is the architect of the spiritual journey. By viewing the Sphinx as the original, powerful architectural constraint for all later building, its importance is magnified exponentially. It transforms the figure from a memorial statue to a massive hieroglyph of location and time, dictating the course of an entire sacred landscape for thousands of years. The dynastic Egyptians did not create the Giza plan. They inherited it, and they built their monumental legacy in deep, profound reverence for the lion's fixed gaze. The gaze remains, awaiting the appointed time.
Beyond the debates of geology and the intricacies of alignment, the Great Sphinx offers a deep, profound invitation to contemplate its philosophical meaning. Its enduring image, the fusion of the human head representing intellect, consciousness, and spirit, upon the lion's body, representing physical power, solar energy, and instinct, is a deliberate composite that speaks to the core duality of existence in ancient cosmology. The ancient Egyptian obsession with duality and balance, epitomized by the concept of Mayat, truth, order, balance, is perfectly embodied in the Sphinx's form. It is the ultimate expression of the necessary balance between the primal and the refined, the animal spirit and the divine mind. The lion, solar power and primal instinct.
The lion, the massive recumbent body, represents the raw solar and terrestrial power of the Egyptian world. Solar deity. The lion was inherently associated with the sun god Re. Its golden color, immense strength, and natural aggression linked it to the burning, regenerative power of the sun. The Sphinx's body is a vast manifestation of this solar energy, eternally facing the dawn. Terrestrial power. The lion is the king of the earth, representing the strength and vital force necessary for creation and existence. The body of the Sphinx, carved from the bedrock, is literally the embodiment of the Tatenen, the primeval earth god from whom all life emerged. The Sphinx, in its leonine form, anchors the divine energy of the cosmos to the physical reality of the Giza Plateau. The human head, consciousness, and divinity. The human head, crowned with the royal Nemes headdress, elevates the statue from a mere beast to a profound, sentient being. Intelligence and wisdom. The human face represents the highest level of consciousness and the refined wisdom necessary to govern the solar power. If the Sphinx is indeed the guardian of the Hall of Records, the human head symbolizes the intelligence required to decipher and preserve that knowledge. The pharaoh's spirit, or Akh. The head is traditionally a portrait of the pharaoh, Khafre, which symbolically links the individual king's intelligence and spirit, Akh, to the immutable, eternal power of the solar deity, the lion body. The king's spirit merges with the solar god, ensuring his passage through the underworld and his rebirth. The synthesis of duality. The Sphinx is the sacred synthesis of these two forces, the physical and the spiritual. It is a massive, earth-bound form, the lion, eternally gazing towards the heavens, the rising sun, Leo. It mediates the world of matter and the world of spirit. Instinct and intellect. It is the ultimate reminder that the raw power of instinct must be guided by the wisdom of the intellect. The Sphinx is a perfect philosophical machine, where the energy of the sun is focused and directed by the pharaoh's consciousness. If we accept the pre-dynastic dating, 10,500 BCE, the philosophical weight intensifies. The Sphinx becomes a relic of a highly advanced culture that created a physical embodiment of the balance required for survival. It represents the pinnacle of their knowledge, the integration of spiritual wisdom, the human head, with the deep natural rhythms of the earth and the sun, the lion body. The deep, quiet gaze of the Sphinx, fixed on the horizon, is not a stare of vacancy, but a profound act of contemplation, a continuous, silent query into the nature of existence itself, preserved in stone for us to contemplate and interpret. The Sphinx is not waiting for a simple answer. It is waiting for us to understand the harmony it embodies.
We arrive at the final moment of our long, slow contemplation, standing once more at the feet of the colossal sentinel, where the threads of geological time, celestial mechanics, prophetic claims, and political secrecy all converge. The Great Sphinx of Giza remains, at the deepest level, defined by the enduring question of its origins.
The monument stands today as the single greatest physical challenge to the established timeline of human civilization. The core of its enigma is crystallized in the conflict between two timelines. Timeline A, the conventional certainty, c. 2550 BCE. Evidence: architectural and geometric alignment with Pharaoh Khafre's mortuary complex, stylistic resemblance of the head to Khafre's statues, historical coherence with the rise of the organized Fourth Dynasty state. Conclusion: the Sphinx is a magnificent pharaonic statue built as part of a unified solar theology, affirming the king's divinity. Timeline B, the convergent enigma, c. 10,500 BCE. Evidence: geology, deep vertical water erosion on the enclosure walls, consistent with the pre-dynastic African humid period, prior to 5000 BCE. Astronomy, alignment with the heliacal rising of its celestial twin, the constellation Leo, which occurred at 10,500 BCE. Prophecy, historical and modern prophetic claims, Edgar Cayce, of a sealed hall of records and an Atlantean origin at the same epoch. Conclusion: the Sphinx is an astronomical chronometer and a relic of a lost, advanced precursor civilization, later repaired and appropriated by the dynastic Egyptians. The genius of the Great Sphinx is that it provides compelling physical evidence for both timelines, leaving us in a state of deliberate, profound ambiguity. The head is 4,500 years old. The body and the surrounding enclosure walls may be 12,000 years old. The monument is a literal palimpsest, a document where the first, deepest writing was scrubbed clean and overwritten by a later hand, but where the faint, crucial traces of the original script remain. The question of its age is fundamentally the question of who we were. If the Sphinx is truly 12,000 years old, it necessitates a radical re-evaluation of human history, demanding that we acknowledge the existence of a technically and astronomically sophisticated culture that flourished and vanished before the invention of agriculture and writing as we conventionally define them. The ultimate quest is not to settle the debate, but to find the key that unlocks the Hall of Records, not necessarily a physical chamber, but the truth itself, a truth that may be physical, philosophical, or both. The scientific investigation of the subterranean voids continues, quietly fighting against political control and the ambiguity of seismic returns, drawn forward by the magnetic pull of the Cayce prophecy and the undeniable logic of the stars. The Great Sphinx sits, therefore, as the eternal guardian of this uncertainty. Its massive, weathered form embodies the patience of millennia, its gaze fixed on the eastern horizon, waiting for the celestial cycle to turn, for the sands to shift, and for the conscious mind of humanity to finally reach the level of wisdom necessary to understand the deep, quiet, epochal secret it was carved to protect. The monument is not silent because it has nothing to say, but because it is waiting for the right person at the right moment
in the right age to ask the only question that truly matters. Its deep, eternal stillness is the final, profound invitation to understand the true age of the earth and the enduring mystery of its own origins. The sands shift, but the gaze remains.